Good evening, all. Thank you to each and every one of you for being here with us today. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a very warm welcome to one and all to the 14th technical session of the 3-day International Virtual Conference on Gender Studies. Myself, Ashnu Shaji, and will be your moderator for this session. The chairperson of this session is Shraddha Singh, Assistant Professor, Department of Education, Guru Ghasidas Vishwavidyalaya, Bilaspur, Chhattisgarh, India. Welcome, ma'am, to this session. I also welcome all the participants to this session. The participants are Ms. Anada Marin Vincent along with Dr. V. Karunanidhi, Priscilla Karam, Mr. Parveen Kumar and Dr. Shashi Soot, and finally K. Rupasri and Dr. N. Gayatri. So here are some guidelines to the participants. The paper presenters are requested to keep their time limit of 10 to 12 minutes for their paper presentation, and the participants are requested to ask their questions intended for the Q&A session by unmuting their mic as there is some technical issue with the chat box. So over to you, Shraddha ma'am.
First is Ms. Anita Marine Vincent and Dr. V. Karunanidhi, who is present here. Anita, I'm not able to listen. Yes, please unmute.
Yes, sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, thank you for the...
Your topic is Redefining Gender Roles, a study on gender politics in Afghanistan.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. So thank you. As ma'am has said, the title of my presentation is Redefining Gender Roles and a study on gender politics in Afghanistan. So Afghanistan, a landlocked country in the Central Asia, was always at a disadvantage because of its geographical location. In the past, the country was invaded by the Maurya Empire, the Alexander the Great, the Mongols, the Mughals, Persians, Sikhs, and in the recent past, it was invaded by British, Soviet Union. So under the constant onslaught of changing power relations, the life of a normal Afghan underwent a permanent change. Displacement caused by incessant wars disrupted the peace of the nation and alienated the self from the society. And Afghan women who remain voiceless and faceless are forced to redefine the gender roles under these hostile circumstances. Now, this paper is a close study of Shiba Shakib's Afghanistan, where God only comes to we. And the study tries to understand the gender roles in the cultural context of Afghanistan and how war has impacted the gender politics. The paper looks at gender as arbitrary, flexible, and based in culture. How the narrative portrays the concept of masculinity and femininity are also explored in the paper. So Afghanistan, though home to a rich culture and tradition, is bereft of the proud past owing to the incessant invasions. Afghans have lost everything, I quote, everything except their fear, their hunger, their pain, the misery, the poverty, and their illness, unquote. Shiba Shakib's text, Afghanistan, where God only comes to weep, is a woman's story of courage, struggle, and determination. The book highlights many significant issues which define the plight of Afghans in general. And the protagonist Shireen Gaul's story is not an unusual one. But on the other hand, it relates to the normal madness that people of Afghanistan have experienced and continue to experience. Now, within a society, there are a set of normative rules for each gender defining specific ways to behave. By looking at the life and experiences of the protagonist, the gender stereotypes underpinned in the Afghan society is understood. Being born in a disadvantaged country as a woman is a bigger disadvantage. The hegemonic masculinity and femininity are implicated and intersected with other systems of inequality such as class, race, and ethnicity. And in the context of Afghanistan, it intersects with religion too. As a central feature of gender relations, R.W. Connell describes masculinity as, I quote, simultaneously a place in gender relations, the practices through which men and women engage that plays in gender, and the effects of these practices on bodily experience, personality, and culture. That is to say, masculinity is a social position, a set of social practices, and the effect of collective embodiment of these practices on individuals' relationships, institutional structures, and global relations of domination. The hegemonic masculinity, which is underpinned by patriarchy, presents men as holders of power and strength, and women as weak and powerless. An Afghan woman is caught between religion and patriarchy. The birth of a girl child is not celebrated by the society. The first child, being a son, was important for a man to feel like a real man. The boy child needed more care. Daughters, on the other hand, were useful in running the house. They offered a helping hand to their mothers to help her with the work she had to do for her husband and her sons. A girl's role in life, in short, was to be inconspicuous, to work and to obey the orders of the boys and men. And in this paper, I attempt to understand masculinity by understanding the concept of honor. Without the woman, the man fails to affirm his masculinity. And the question of honor is always one of the major themes in the works of Afghan writers. In a patriarchal country like Afghanistan, a man's honor rested on the concept of the female. Girls are taught to believe and obey. The burqa and the veil faces dehumanized women and made them identical. This made the women lose their identity. But why? Because women who are young will cause distraction to men that they will, I quote from the text, grow weak and the enemy and the devil can defeat them. This is devil's work, unquote. The society had instructions to take care of women and their honor. Put your legs together, be quiet, lower your eyes, pull the headscarf down, put on a veil, pull the feet in, get out of the way, make way, don't do this, don't do that because you are a girl. And by doing any of the above, you will be defying the honor of the family and will be called as a kharab. Women being in public dishonored the family and the men. When in the book, when Mullah found out that Shireen was secretly trying to teach children, they warned her husband Murad, asking him, I quote, to tame her and keep a closer eye on her, or people will end up thinking you are not a real man, unquote. So the question of who is a real man takes us back to masculinity and the need to emphasize dominance and authority over women. And even education for girls was very unfamiliar to the conservative Afghan families, that they considered it as an attempt to dishonor the family. So educating a girl was considered as a dishonor to the family. Instead of possessing masculinity, individuals move through and produce masculinity by engaging in masculine practices. In this way, masculinity is an identified set of practices that occur across space and over time and are taken up and enacted collectively by groups and communities and societies. When the Russians attacked Afghanistan, Shireen's father and her elder brothers left the family to join the Mujahideen to become a Shaheed, that is, martyrs fallen in name of the Prophet, the Quran, and of Islam. It was the duty and honor of a man to fight for his fatherland. It was masculine to be part of a war. Power and masculinity is also interconnected. As Shireen observes, there is always a man, I quote, who is the head of the country, who promises to bring freedom for everyone. At any rate, there is always a man promising to bring freedom, unquote. Shireen is glad that she is a woman, because if she were a man, perhaps she says that she too would have tried to win power for herself. So hegemonic masculinity legitimizes patriarchy and grants men a dominant position over women. However, the normative gender roles changed during the war. They emphasized femininity in compliance towards the supposed dominance of patriarchy by accommodating the interests and desires of men. Shireen and many other women characters that we come across the book complied with the gender roles assigned to them. But it changed when they had to take care of their families in the absence of men who had gone to fight against the Russians. So in a sociological study of the country, identified the following as the major reasons for the poor living conditions of women. One is that man is the primary breadwinner, led to the mass poverty among women who were widowed as a result of the conflict, but were unable to find employment due to lack of skill or education. And second is the oppressive laws banning women from getting educated. When it comes to Shireen's life, the gender roles changed as her husband Murad became addicted to opium and refrained from supporting her family. And Shireen takes care of the role of the provider. She started to work and she left the home and went to work alone without the assistance of a man, as if she were a man. The normal man, as seen in the book, found it difficult to survive amidst war. Men were sitting around unemployed and unoccupied. Shireen calls her husband as Opium Murad and Desperate Murad. When he failed to protect the honor of his wife, he found himself ignoring his responsibilities by becoming addicted to opium. Women were stronger than men because they had a strategy to get through difficult times. They listened to each other, and by listening to each other, they were helping each other. Sisterhood, that is close bond among women, and female friendship is also highlighted in the book. When Sherin, who was educated and strong, found it difficult to survive in growing adverse conditions, she was assisted by the women around her. Like the young woman in the refugee camp in Pakistan who helped Shireen, did so because she could identify with the hardships of Shireen. Now, when Shireen was gang raped by the Pakistani police, the mental trauma was too much that she could not come out of it. At that point of time, Bahara, another Afghan woman, took pity on her, supported her, cared for her, and slowly brought her back to life. So women who were abandoned by God and the world, forgotten, alone, and abandoned to the injustice of war, of hunger, and the winds of man, found solace in the company of other women. The book also shows how women offer resistance. These acts of resistance are also acts of reclaiming their identity. They are also a characteristic feature that defines their femininity. After the death of their brother in the fight against Russians, Shireen's elder sisters decided to take revenge upon the Russians. They painted their lips red and their eyes black and went into the village to seduce and kill the Soviet soldiers. Their act of defiance caused a shame to the family and sullied the honor of their father, brothers, and their martyred brother. But it was an act of resistance from the part of the sisters, and thus they reclaimed their identity for themselves. And even in the refugee camp in Pakistan, Shireen broke the convention by starting a secret school for children. Again, another act of resistance. Later, in an attempt to escape to Iran, Shireen and her family reached a small village where she met Azadine, who was a doctor. She emerges as a strong character who helped a lot of women who was badly in need of help. Because Azadine believed that women should start living their lives not according to what others wanted. And the women who came to visit her were allowed to feel the lightness of life. They laughed together, and Shireen realizes that this act of laughing out loud in a country which denies the freedom for women itself is resistance. Everything that the women did in there was resistance. So to conclude, the biography of Shireen Gol highlights the plight of women of Afghanistan, and it also sheds light on the tumultuous history of the country. Even though Shireen survived among the harsh realities of life, there are many others who could not because the patriarchal society was too harsh on them. How the hegemonic masculinity exerts its dominance in every sphere of life makes the reader question the need to redefine hierarchy and power structures to uplift the women and the nation at large. Thank you. Thus, I conclude my paper.
Okay, Anita, very well presented. You analyzed the gender roles. I tried to redefine the gender roles also, and you analyzed through the Afghanistan writings and masculinity also. So overall, it was a nice presentation. Okay, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is Priscilla Karam, and your topic is the new male body, rethinking media representation of masculinity in a globalized world. Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Yes, you were audible, Priscilla. Please unmute.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. Yes.
Thank you, Shraddha ma'am, for introducing me. As mentioned by Ma'am Shraddha, the title of my presentation is The New Male Body, Rethinking Media Representation of Masculinity in a Globalized World. So, as the title suggests, the central concern of this paper will be the exploration of the emergence of the new male body, which is a delicate, non-mesomorphic male body that has taken center stage on various platforms of mass media and pop culture. It is a complex and radical representation where the male body is no longer a towering mass of muscles and tough exterior, but rather a soft, androgynous, almost gender fluid representation. Also, I would like to point out that I'm considering the male body as one of the avenues or indicators of masculinity. So, as a sociologist R.W. Connell pointed out, she said that true masculinity is almost always thought to proceed from men's bodies, to be inherent in a male body or to express something about a male body. So, naturally, the human body as a social and cultural construct becomes a primal ground on which struggles for power and control are often asserted. So, hegemonic masculinity as a dominant ideology represents a very specific kind of masculinity, which is that of a white male, heterosexual, and aggressive men. And in terms of physical attributes, hegemonic masculinity capitalizes on hypermasculine body, which is often muscular or mesomorphic, strong, well-toned, athletic bodies. And since we live in a postmodern culture of consumerism, the body easily becomes a site for consumption. So representation of these specific type of hegemonic masculinity on media, it calls for a very strong cultural critique and a very stable social dialogue. So mass media not only has the power to inform, inculcate, and influence social values, but it also ends up creating stereotypes, encouraging consumerism and unfortunately reinforcing traditional ideals. And emphasis on muscular, hard-bodied males displaying signs of aggression has dominated pop culture and media for a very long time. So media representation of the male body, it builds perceptions of the body, thereby stereotyping gender roles and body image. So most of the time, the representation of the image of the male body is modulated by following traditional hegemonic traits. So oftentimes, masculine representation ends up reinforcing the existing patriarchal male image. Now, since its inception, media has continued to reinforce the notion of gender stereotyping. For instance, let's talk about magazines, cinema, music videos, television, even billboards, which consistently present images of masculine men, thereby influencing how men perceive their bodies. So in fact, muscular representations of the male body, they've become a part and parcel of the current media culture, wherein media has always marketed to men the muscular physique as the ideal male body. Such preferences and beliefs, they become the acceptable norm because it keeps the, within quotes, normality of hegemonic masculinity. So in short, male masculinity becomes one of the determinant factors of male success. Now, a stark example or a concrete example would be the representation of male actors or heroes in cinema along the traditional line of hegemonic masculinity in order to try and keep up with the status quo. So there is no shortage of depictions of hard-bodied male in film genres, let's say these cowboy movies, as we like to call them, or actions or noir movies, where it becomes important to sustain and reinforce the hegemonic concept of masculinity. And in movies like the cowboy movies or the Western movies, what happens is this genre reaffirms hegemonic masculinity by depicting a hard-bodied, tough-looking muscular man because they are usually considered to be the ultimate representation of what the American or frontier white male supremacy is about. So it is this aggressive demeanor and hard exterior that ensures the social ascendancy of hegemonic masculinity. However, the good side is that media also provides us a platform to challenge limiting masculine norms in ways that support representation of alternate masculinity. So now in the present age, we live in the world of internet and social media platforms. It has become very easy to either reinforce or challenge the ideology of hegemonic masculinity. So in a globalized world, it becomes easier still to internalize media representations of society's depiction of masculine traits. Now, the development of any kind of new image of the male body that goes counter to the traditional norm becomes a threat to the hegemonic perception. So if I take examples of movies and actors like Woody Allen in American film genre, he represents the exact opposite of what a quintessential American male hero should be. You know, his characters are very fragile bodied, almost to the point of being sickly. And then his characters are prone to nervous breakdown, depression, disease sometimes. And there's an extraordinary lack of confidence in his physical or manly prowess. So Allen's heroes are humorously a foil to all the traditional hegemonic Hollywood heroes. Another example I would like to take is that of the upcoming young star, Timothy Chalamet. I would go far as to say that he, as a male actor, has single-handedly changing the face of masculinity in both the cinematic and the fashion world. As a leading male actor, there is nothing conventional about the way he looks, nothing conventional about the way he acts and portrays male lead characters. So with a very thin waif-like body, Chalamet's main characters are far from endorsing hypermasculinity. His is a perfect example of what I've mentioned in my abstract. It's a non-mesomorphic, male body. It's the softer kind of masculinity, androgynous, almost gender fluid. So there is a languid quality in the manner in which he plays his male characters, which is again entirely different from all the toxic masculinity that we have been fed through media. And then another example would be that of this path-breaking development of this visible representation of gender fluid masculinity in that of pop stars in the music industries of East Asia. For decades, masculinity of Western culture has been equated to macho, and that of Eastern culture has always been equated as feminine. So in tune with the imperialist attitude that has persisted for a very long time. So the rise and acceptance of the representation of these male stars from the East on the global platform is all the more subversive because they have broken through the tough exterior of the Eurocentric hegemonic masculinity and confronted the normative masculinity of the West. So through their music, their fashion, their aesthetics, their physicality, they have rejected social constructs, and broken gender norms. And then the traditional masculine traits of machismo and toughness are usually absent from their label. So from wearing women's clothes to makeup, they have flouted all traditional expectations. And generally, they are stereotyped as pretty boys or girly or feminine boys for their smooth skin, lean bodies, etc. But they have somehow managed to transform these accusations into a new form of masculinity. So basically, this visible movement of the representation of this gender fluid male body is and its phenomenal integration into the Western market in the present day has confronted the long-standing stereotype of the burly, muscular male body. And interestingly, the rise of the new male body in its global attention that it's receiving right now in the present day, I think it's slowly changing the way the world views the male body. And so the image of the new male body, it not only subverts but challenges the traditional masculine sexuality. I think it broadens the scope of masculinity, thereby breaking the patriarchal hegemonic wall. And as evidenced by the growing acknowledgement, the appreciation and acceptance by a global audience, including men, women, the non-binary gender, media personalities have heralded a new image of the male body. So I would like to end my presentation by stating that the present day media and pop culture, especially cinema and music industry, have thus become a space for the development of profound changes in the way the world perceives masculinity. So the shift in the representation of the male body have problematized the position of Eurocentric male body image, and I think it's slowly challenging the existing traditional hegemonic male image. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Priscilla, and nice presentation. So we see in mainstream media representation play a significant role in reinforcing the ideas about what it means to be a hero in society. So your paper tried to rethink and redefine these representations. Congratulations. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now,
Thank you all.
yes. Next is Mr. Praveen Kumar and Dr. Shachi Sood from BGSB University, Jammu and Kashmir. Are you there? Mr. Praveen Kumar or either Dr. Shachi Sood? Okay, I don't think they are present here. So let's move to the next, that is K. Rupashri and Dr. N. Gayatri.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay, good afternoon. Your topic is tracing the history of homosexuality in India from ancient medieval to present time.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
One second, ma'am. Let me share my slide. Ma'am, could you slide my slide, ma'am?
No, it's not visible. Yes, now it's visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Good afternoon to all. I am K. Rupashri, a research scholar from Vellore Institute of Technology, and another research supervisor, Dr. N. Gayatri, Assistant Professor Senior from Vellore Institute of Technology. And today my paper title is Tracing the History of Homosexuality in India from Ancient Medieval to the Present Times. Introduction. The word sexuality meant different things to different people as its understanding evolves over time. Uh, for many people, sexuality is just a sexual act between men and women or a deep sensual desires for someone. So, when we take human sexuality, it is multidimensional because every individual gets distinguished based on their sexual desires, behaviors, and identities. So, the relationship between men and women, which is referred as heterosexuality, is one of the mostly accepted norm of the society. And on the other hand,
Sorry to interrupt.
yes, ma'am.
I'm not able to see the slides now.
Mm, One
I
second,
think
ma'am.
video is off.
1 minute, ma'am.
Okay, doesn't matter. You can present like that itself. Go ahead. If you are
Yes,
not
shall I
involved,
proceed, ma'am?
no,
Now, ma'am?
no, you are visible.
Okay, ma'am. I don't know what is technical issue in there. Shall I proceed, ma'am?
Yes. Proceed.
So, on the other hand, homosexuality is one of the sexual aspect
in which it is a relationship between two same-sex individuals, and compared to heterosexuality, homosexuality is closely related with sufferings and complexity, and it is also regarded as a non-normative behavior by the society. And divisions of homosexual are lesbian, gay, bisexual people. Lesbian, it is female homosexuals, and gay, male homosexuals, and bisexual people. These people gets attracted to their own sex as well as to their opposite sex, and these people are considered as sexual minority people because of their homosexual orientation. And also these people are prejudiced for not being heterosexual. So through this paper I attempted to trace the complex status of homosexuality, particularly in India, and also I made three divisions of period: ancient, medieval, and modern. In ancient period, I mapped the ancient references which mention homosexuality, and medieval period is all about colonial period, in which I located the impacts of British colonization on homosexuality, and the third one is present times, the status of homosexuality in India after the Republic of India. So the presence of homosexuality in Indian ancient period. So we all know India is a wide country representing historical, social, political, and cultural variations. So among that, the act of homosexuality is considered as a hostile to Indian values, and some of the instances are which featured about sexual behaviors in the ancient text are Kama Sutra, Manusmriti, Ardhashastra, and Puranas, and we can find sexual aspects of life in all these texts. So these are also remarkable texts which mentioned about homosexuality as one kind of sexual aspect among human behaviors. So Kama Sutra is one of the important book which is comprised of three parts, and in the third part titled Kama, in which one chapter is completely contributed to feature homosexual aspects. And if we see the carvings and sculptures of Gajraho and Konark temple, it also portrayed the same-sex behaviors. So in the ancient period, it is lucid that homosexuality is neither praised nor condemned, but it remains neutral. So the impacts of British colonization on homosexuality. During the British colonization in India, people underwent many struggles. So among that, homosexual people also struggled due to the establishment of the law, uh, Section 377 of Indian Penal Code, and it was established by British rulers in 1861. So this law categorized homosexuality as a crime, and it is an order against nature, and it also criminalized homosexuals for their same-sex behaviors. So the impacts of this law severely harassed and threatened the homosexual communities not to come out as a homosexual in India, and it also created negative attitudes towards homosexual, which is referred as homophobia, and it also exploited their fundamental rights in India. So Ruth Vanitha is one of the prominent writer who opposed many Indian people's view that homosexuality is of Western culture, or it is of a Western innovation. But she insists that homosexuality concept already existed in pre-colonial period, but the law, the Section 377 and homophobia are derived from the Western culture, and also it prevailed during the post-independence of India. And homosexuality after the Republic of India, at all times heterosexuality is glorified, that is a relationship between men and women. But so heterosexual people underestimate homosexuality as a disease, abnormal, and mental disorder. So homosexuality in India becomes a concealed issue and not exposed openly to the public society. And many of the research also ignored homosexuality and also to research about the emotional problems faced by homosexuals. So homosexual people struggle personally, mentally, psychologically, physically, and even tortured by their own families and relatives. So they are forced to undergo mental and spiritual treatments to cure homosexuality. So, to protest all these equalities, many organizations and activists began to emerge in India to support homosexuals and also demand for their equal rights. So, some activists and organizations conducted public meetings, demonstrations, and workshops to create awareness and also to support homosexuals. And these organizations also opposed Section 377 for criminalizing homosexuals. So in India, the recognition issue for homosexual people got its focus during 1990s. And apart from protest and organization, the role of media and literature played the best role in voicing the homosexual, and also it brought out their struggles and demands to the visibility. So the secrecy and the concealed issue of homosexuality was broken almost in all the fields, like in film industry, social media, magazines, and audio broadcast, and all these platforms interpret the issues of homosexuals. And some of the examples are Bomb 1996. It was India's first short film on gay community, and Fire 1998. It was the first movie to deal with lesbianism, and after the release of movie, it received many backlashes and controversies from the political and public spheres for depicting lesbianism. And Bombay Dost, it was the first magazine which portrayed about gays. And Ashok Ro Kavi is one of the significant LGBTQ activists. He is a founder and editor of this magazine. And in 2010, Queer Inc. It was established particularly to publish LGBTQ writings. And role of literature. Uh, Indian authors began to incorporate same-sex themes in their writings, and many gay, lesbian, and writers also recounted their own experiences and bitter incidents through their writings. So, some of the examples are Facing the Mirror, Lesbian Writing from India, 1999. It is a collection of book, and it is the first book to reflect about Indian lesbian experiences, and also Yarana, Gay Writing from India, 1999. And this book also explored gay experiences in India. So some of the recent trends of homosexuality in India are, so if we take the idea of homosexuality as well as the status of homosexual differs from country to country. So homosexual people are not treated as a normal humans, though some of the organization declared that it is not a mental disorder. Instead, it is an innate aspect of human being. Um, and LGBTQ people of India protest constantly in many ways to achieve equality and social acceptance. And later, the Supreme Court of India on September 6, 2018 declared Section 377 as unlawful, and homosexuality is no more offense and in the Indian society. And 2018 becomes a landmark year for LGBTQ stream, because it is a struggle of 150 years to break down the gender bias and sexual discrimination from the Indian government. And India is also one among other countries which does not face exclusive progression in understanding, accepting, and recognizing homosexual couples. And many of the countries in the 21st century, like Belgium, Canada, Spain, Netherlands, acknowledged same-sex couples and also provided some opportunities for the same-sex couple, like heterosexual couple. But if contrastingly in India, the very recent announcement of High Court of India in February 2021 is same-sex couples or homosexual partners cannot be compared with the Indian family unit, which is comprised of husband, wife, and children, because India has its valuable tradition in marriage system, rituals, and customs. So, conclusion. So the subject of homosexuality is always a controversial topic globally and debating point at all times. So India particularly has its own history of homosexuality, and it is very clear that each period is unique in depicting same-sex relationships. So in India, homosexuality navigates through both progression and degradation throughout the years, and it's all about a time perception to accept homosexuals, and it is also a gradual social process in the Indian society. So I conclude with the vision that it is every human's obligation to consider individual's humanity rather than his or her sexuality, and these attitudes will definitely help to improve the living standards of homosexuals in India. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rupashri. Good one.
Thank you,
Uh,
ma'am.
your paper endured a kind of a sense of identity to homosexuality and LGBTQ community
Yes, ma'am.
to remove the ignorance on the behalf of the Indian society, which assumes homosexuality to be a Western interference. Okay, nice presentation. I would once again, I would like to call Mr. Praveen Kumar and Dr. Shatu Sood if you are present. Any one of you present? No. Okay. So now I would like to conclude this session. So in this technical session, you all successfully tried to redefine the gender roles, redefine masculinity, not only in Indian context, but also in the global context as well, and how media and text represents the masculinity to reinforce the ideas. We also saw how homosexuality and its recognition is a part of Indian culture. I once again congratulate to each one of you and would like to thanks to the organizers for making me this part of this technical session, for giving me opportunity to chair this session. Thank you all. Thank you and congratulations.